On this episode of No Reservations, I have three friends with me here to talk about what makes the Mexican economy so great. I'm your host for No Reservations, Antonio Bourdain. Let's have a great show. How's it going, Management 357? I'm your host tonight, Antonio Bourdain. I'm hosting No Reservations. We're right here in the heart of Mexico City, and we're going to give you a tour around. Talk about trading partners. The number one trading partner for Mexico is the United States, followed by Canada, followed by China, followed by Germany, followed by Brazil. The top 5 trade deficits are China, Japan, South Korea, Germany, and Malaysia. Good, man. You still cooking?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, man. Definitely, man. Anyways, I wanted everybody on the show to know this is Adam, my cultural and economic expert. He's going to be talking about culture and economics in Mexico.
Mexico's current economic freedom score is a 64.7, which makes the economy the 66th most economically free country in the 2019 World Ranking Index. They have about $2.5 trillion in GDP, which is a result of the U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement that allows for regional trade. The combined value of exports and imports is equivalent to 77.6% of the total GDP. The average tariff rate is 4.3%. Mexico's judicial system is weak due to all the bribes by officials and bureaucrats. The high rate of criminal extortion cripples the rule of law in Mexico. Until this very day, corruption is very popular in Mexico and is caused by the billions of narco dollars. Over 100 politicians were assassinated in 2018. The new government in place is expected to improve in the energy, financial, fiscal, and telecommunication sectors with the endless goal of developing competitiveness and economic growth across the economy of Mexico. When talking about Mexico's culture environment, we're going to go ahead and look at Hofstede's dimension of culture as an example, with number 1 being power distance. This dimension deals with the fact that all individuals in societies are not equal. Mexico is a hierarchical society. This means that people accept a hierarchical order in which everyone has a place and subordinates are told what to do and the boss is a benevolent autocrat. The next dimension is individualism. The fundamental issue addressed by this dimension is the degree of interdependence a society maintains among its members. Mexico is considered to be a collectivistic society in which they create long-term commitments to the member group, whether that be family, or extended relationships.
I'm here to meet up with my main economics man, Julian. Hey, what's up, Julian, man? Why don't you tell everybody about your job title and what you're working on?
Sure. Well, I'm working on this economic study of Mexico, and there's a lot going on with regards to globalization. Mexico is very interconnected with the global economic picture. If you want to hear more, let's go walk outside. I'll tell you about it.
Cool.
When I say Mexico and exports, what comes to your mind? Probably things like avocados, tortillas, maybe tequila or beer. While these are all correct answers, you might be surprised to find out that Mexico's export economy actually relies far less on the country's rich food culture than you'd assume. A trend with developed nations has shown that over time the percentage of GDP attributable to agricultural products steadily declines over time, and Mexico has been no exception. The actual top 3 Mexican exports are respectively cars, consumer electronics, and oil. As of 2017, Mexico was the 6th largest producer of oil in the world. Though it is still very important to the health of the Mexican economy, Mexican reliance on oil exports has been falling since 1980. Then, oil accounted for 61.6% of exports. In 2017, that number had fallen to 4.7%.
Hey everyone, it's Julian here. You're joining us here at the heart of one of Mexico's finest flea markets. Doors open at 8 a.m. and we've been here ever since. It's getting pretty humid out, but as you can see, people are starting to come in looking to buy a bunch of goods. There's a lot of things being sold here. Right now we're in the fruit section. As you can see, there's a whole lot of fruits and vegetables being sold, all grown in Mexico and sold here by those farmers. And I'm going to show you around. There's a whole lot of stuff here. Let's go. Here you can see this vendor is selling cleaning supplies. Spoke earlier about the importance of the car industry to Mexico's economy, and here you can see even at this flea market we've got car keys and their parts being sold. Just an example of something that's hugely important to Mexico's economy being, shown even in maybe the most unlikely of places. You can see various speakers and headphones and other electronic products. In Mexico, they have these warehouses called maquiladoras, where workers and companies import raw materials and then export finished goods. And a big part of what they do there is make things like consumer electronics, such as these audio devices behind me. They got hats. Hey guys, just meeting up with Antonio here. That's good, man. We're just taking a look at some soccer jerseys. As you may or may not know, Mexico's largest sport is soccer, and as you can see, that's being represented here in the flea market with jerseys from all different kinds of teams, both from Mexico and not. They just can't get enough of soccer.
Here at the Lucha Libre booth, long-standing ancient tradition in Mexico is wrestling, and it's kind of personified here through some of these masks. Like in Mexico, children will get the mask of their favorite wrestler, and they'll put it on, and it's rather a tradition and stuff. And you can find these for sale at anywhere where there's a large Mexican population, or anywhere throughout Mexico. You can find these Lucha Libre masks for sale.
I love the open market feel, bro.
Yeah, the open market feel is definitely amazing, and I wish they had more stuff like this in the United States. But the United States economy is more retail based, where here it's a lot more small businesses. I mean, in Mexico they still have Costco, Smart and Final, things like that, but they're just not as common. It's a lot more small businesses. It's a lot more people using what they can to make a living, Yeah. It's just amazing. I love the open market. Hola, señorita, ¿cómo estás?
Bien, gracias. ¿Usted?
Bien, bien, gracias. ¿Unos tacos de pescado?
Ya, ¿ok?
Gracias.
¿Con todo?
Sí, todo.
¿Va a comer aquí?
Sí, gracias.
Yeah, this is a classic street style fish taco, you know, straight out of the fryer. Right here you have your classic corn tortillas right here, usually made fresh daily in Mexican restaurants and stuff. You have salsa, la crema, pescado, and a little bit of cabbage just to get it going. Perfecto.
Hey Antonio, how's it going?
Oh, hey, how's it going? This is my political science expert who's going to talk about the political environment as well as the trade agreements.
All right, let's go.
All right, let's do it.
Mexico has been a presidential democracy since October 1824. The president is elected for one term only of 6 years. He is the head of state, the head of government, and the supreme commander of the army force. The legislative branch of the government is composed of the Chamber of Deputies with 500 members and the Senate of the Republic with 128 members. The president is Andrés Manuel López Obrador, AMLO, since 2018 and until 2024. He is part of Morena, the National Regeneration Movement, the Social Democratic Party. The movement fights for the interests of the poor, the working class, farmers, women, indigenous people, and gays and lesbians. It will promote the democratization of the country as well by fighting against privatization of the state oil company Pemex and the electrical industry, as well as the increase of sales tax on food and medicine. The United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, or USMCA, will be in effect in 2020 and will replace NAFTA. Thanks to this new agreement, local automobile industry will be promoted even more with an increase in the rule of origin from 62.5% to 75%. It will also increase wages in Mexico from $10 to $16 per hour.
Mexico boasts the 11th largest GDP by purchasing power parity and is supported by a number of thriving industries. For example, almost all major car companies in the world do development, research, and manufacturing work in Mexico. You have America's big three, Chrysler, General Motors, and Ford, who have all had an operating presence in the country since the 1930s. They've since been joined by the likes of Nissan, Mazda, Toyota, Honda, BMW, Mercedes-Benz, and Volkswagen, among others. In fact, 70% of the components in the newest VW Jetta were researched, designed, and manufactured in Mexico. It's practically a Mexican car, and I would not be surprised to see this become a trend in the future. You also have maquiladoras, which are production plants that operate for the purpose of exporting, who play a huge role in the health of the Mexican economy. Being that Mexico is the second largest producer of electronics in North America, much of the work done in these maquiladora plants is the production of consumer electronics. You have everything from computers and televisions to vacuums and electronic toothbrushes all being made in Mexico. The most prominent electronics companies in Mexico include Sony, Toshiba, Samsung, LG, Philips, and Panasonic. Here are some fun facts about Mexico. The Mexican economy has a goal growth rate about twice that of the US at 3.7%. Half of every dollar Mexico earns goes into purchasing more US goods and supplies. An estimation by the Mexico Institute at the Woodrow Wilson Center says that as much as 40% of Mexican-made imported goods are constructed with US materials. For China, that number is only 4%. There's also an enormous disparity between the rich and poor in Mexico. The richest man in Mexico is Carlos Slim, who made most of his fortune off a 57% stake in America Mobile, which is the largest mobile phone operator in Latin America. His net worth is estimated to be equivalent to about 5% of Mexico's GDP. And for a final fun fact, Mexico City is home to the largest taxi fleet in the world.
Pacific Partnership was put in place in October 2012 between Australia, Brunei, Canada, Chile, Japan, Malaysia, Mexico, New Zealand, Peru, Singapore, the United States, and Vietnam. Its purpose is to lower the non-tariff and tariff barriers to trade. It also helped the countries reduce their dependence on Chinese trade.
The third dimension is masculinity. A high score on this dimension indicates that the society will be driven by competition, achievement, and success, with success being defined by the winner in the field, a value system that starts in school and continues throughout organizational life. A low score on the dimension means that the dominant values in society are caring for others and quality of life. A feminine society is one where quality of life is a sign of success and standing out from the crowd is not admirable. Which makes Mexico a masculine society. In masculine countries, people live in order to work, managers are expected to be decisive and assertive, the emphasis is on equity, competition, and performance and conflicts are resolved by fighting them out. The fourth dimension is uncertainty avoidance. This has to do with the way that a society deals with the fact that the future can never be known. Should we try to control the future or just let it happen? Mexico scores 82 on this dimension and thus has a very high preference for avoiding uncertainty. Countries exhibiting high uncertainty avoidance maintain rigid codes of belief and behavior and are intolerant of unorthodox behavior and ideas. In these cultures, there is an emotional need for rules, even if the rules never seem to work. Time is money. People have an inner urge to be busy and work hard. Precision and punctuality are the norm. Innovation may be resisted. Security is an important element in individual motivation. The fifth dimension is long-term orientation. This dimension describes how every society has to maintain some links with its own past while dealing with the challenges of the present and future. This relatively low score of 24 means that the Mexican culture is normative. People in such societies have a strong concern with establishing the absolute truth. They are normative in their thinking. They exhibit great respect for traditions, a relatively small propensity to save for the future, and a focus on achieving quick results. The sixth and last dimension is indulgence. This dimension is defined as the extent to which people try to control their desires and impulses based on the way they were raised. With a very high score of 97, Mexican culture has a definite tendency toward indulgence. People in societies classified by a high score in indulgence generally exhibit a willingness to realize their impulses and desires with regard to enjoying life and having fun. They possess a positive attitude and have a tendency toward optimism. In addition, they place a higher degree of importance on leisure time, act as they please, and spend money as they wish.
What's up, man? Anthony Bourdain here. I just want to thank you all for coming out for a great show of No Reservations. I think we talked about everything except for trading investment patterns as well as the top trading partners. As of 2017, Mexico ranks 13th for imports, 13th for exports, and 105th for trade balance. As much as 80.5% of Mexico's exports go to the United States. Mexico is involved in 40 trade deals and currently renegotiating NAFTA. FDI averaged $2,759 million from 1960 to 2019. It reached a high of $20,982 million in 2013.